Howdy once again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher. Welcome back to the South Bend Shaper Shop and the continuation of the rebuild, restoration, repainting of the South Bend 7-inch Shaper. Make sure that you have watched the other ones because there'll be a whole slew of videos on this subject, all in numerical order. This is, I believe, number 5 in the group. So we'll continue where I left off in the last one. Make sure you watch that now. And let's get started. Even though the last video was only 15 minutes long, it represented probably about 24 hours of work, and I can't show everything in detail. And I know I've hopped around a little bit, but you can see that I've got some parts painted and ready to go and to make sub-assemblies. Well, yet the main carcass of the machine sits over there lonely and needs an awful lot of work. But I get satisfaction and the feeling that I'm getting somewhere by doing these sub-assemblies. So what I'd like to do now is to wire the motor and then mount it on the power unit here with the pulleys, so that I've got that done. And this has all been cleaned and painted, taken apart. You saw that in the last video. So what I need to do is to put a new cord on the motor. This old cord was probably a 16.2. I'm going to use 14.3. That goes back to the olden days when they did not ground anything, so it's just 2-wire. So there is some danger to that. So I'm going to replace that, as I said, and I like all rubber cord. I just cannot stand that cheap plastic cord. Well, our Ace hardware store, last time I went down there, all of the spools of cord that they sold by the foot are empty or have only a few feet left on them. I don't know if they can't get it because of the pandemic or we just got a bunch of lazy people that aren't ordering. So I went to Menards and paid about $18 for 25 foot. But what I like about this, and this is 14.3 as I said, that it already has some plugs on it. Well, I got to get that tape off and show you. And look at this. Are there enough warning labels on an extension cord in about 9 languages? You know, like don't touch bare wires and don't stand in water with your bare feet. So, all right. So what I like about this, I've already got the male and the female plugs, and you've seen me in other videos where what I like to do is from the motor just run a short cord with a plug. Then it's easy to take the motor off of the machine. So what I'll do here is cut off 2 foot or less of the cord right about here, and then I will strip it back and wire this right into the motor. I won't show all of that. Again, this was $18, but if I was able to buy some of this cord, it would be about $1 a foot. Well, I don't need 25 foot, but I would have got 12 foot, so that was $12, and that would have been $5, and you know, these are $5, $6 a piece. Well, gone are the days when you could buy a nice plug for 19 cents. Now, I don't want 25 feet of cord in my way, plus we got a voltage drop, so I'll probably just use 10 or 12 foot of this, and then I still got another 10 foot of good cord in my inventory. I like to keep my wiring tools in a box marked wiring tools, by the way. And I got my strippers, I got my cutters, and you know, everything in there. So that's pretty handy. Oh, I got another one of these. See what that's marked. $2.59. That must be real old inventory because it's still got an ACE sticker on it rather than a UPC code. Well, there's a code underneath it. But they used to mark everything individually in the olden days, remember? I hate it when I drop the nuts down in there, don't you? Which I probably will be doing here momentarily. And then this motor will be properly grounded for the first time in its 60-year life. Throw that away. And this is ready to go to wire in place. You know, I have to be careful not to show too much of what I do electrically because there's always some licensed electrician who crucifies me. This was $3 at a garage sale. You might have remembered when I got it. And generally, when you get one like this, the popular sizes are going to be gone, but this one is pretty well stocked. Matter of fact, beautifully stocked. That probably cost 30 bucks because it's 3M, not you know what. All right, let's see if it runs. You know, I haven't heard this run yet. There it is, and it's pretty quiet too, isn't it? All right, it's ready to mount onto the bracket back here with the pulleys. This is a new pulley that I had in stock. The old one must have been a replacement because there is no keyway in it, just a set screw, and the shaft is keyed. So you tear up, bugger up your keyway if these are made for motors or shafts with a flat spot on them. So I got the correct one on there, and a new belt, 28-inch. And I have to align the two pulleys, so I haven't tightened this yet, so I'll do that off camera because they were way out of line as well. Wow, that's almost too tight, but that's the same size belt. So now I will align them, although it looks pretty good. Now I'll lay a straight edge on there and then I'll tighten that Allen head set screw. All right, that unit is then ready to install 2 or 3 weeks from now. So I got that done and I feel some satisfaction. If you like these little shapers, Atlas, RHODES, whatever they are, take a look at this video I'm going to show you in the following little clip here, just the title of it that I put on some years ago, and it's a shaper much smaller than this that a man gave to me. I no longer own it, but it is very unique. I think it is hand built. So watch this video. I'm going to give you the title right now. That should read 132,000 views. Check it out. It's 3 parts. I'm going to take these electrical boxes off because this needs to be rewired anyway, and they're in the way for painting. I've already taken the cover off. And then one more. There we go. Now you will note that right there where that black mess is, that was some kind of sealant to keep oil from leaking out those screw holes. Probably some type of Permatex. Now I know I'm going to catch heck from a lot of you people, but my paint job and preparation is semi-superficial. If you want to see a real detailed job, watch Brad Jacobs, better known as Basement Shop Guy, because he carries us all to another level, you know, matching the paint and removing every bit, taking it down to the bare cast iron, filling and all that. But, well, I'm too old to do that, and what I'm doing is good enough for who it's for, but I just wanted to make that comment. Now what I have to do is, I think the hardest job, I've been dreading it the most, to take this slide off. Well, it won't come right off. Why? Because there's a nut, a brass nut in there, and I'm at the end of the travel. Well, I thought, well, that's too much work. I'm just going to go ahead and clean it and paint as best I can, but I'm going to at least give it a try. I'm going to turn this thing upside down, and this is the crank that, of course, elevates the whole table, and some of that has to be removed. There are gears down there, so I'm going to flip this over, And if I can get that off and it's all successful, I might also separate the column from the base for painting purposes, although I don't think it's really all that necessary, but there are 4 bolts plus 2 dowel pins. Sometimes dowel pins are kind of tough to get apart. And another comment I wanted to make is that there's a lot of parts here, and this will go on for a month. I forget how things go together. So I do have some of the small parts in baggies, and they're marked. And my backup is to go back through my video. If I get stumped, I go back through the video to see where things belong or how I took them apart. And I think some of you oldsters also have that trouble. All right, enough gabbing, let's get to this. But I tell you, I've been dreading this part now the whole weekend. Today's, well, all right, let's go. Many people in the comments made fun of my horror freight cart, but it was $30 used, but it sure is handy, I'll have to admit. I know it's pretty chintzy and all that, but it's doing the job. Not bad for a 77-year-old man. Can you hear my knees? I need to put WD-40 on my knees. You know, some people actually say that works. Now you notice it's a little dark in here and hard to see, and I'm going to light it up here in a minute. But what was really happening there, and somebody explained it to me, that it's a matter of contrast. We got a lot of brightness here on the orange, and then this is dark, but it appears even darker on your screen than what it is to me. But I'll put the light up for photography purposes. And I'm going to talk more about that contrast business. It's contrast in another video. Thank you to whoever told me that. So really the only way to get that screw out of there so that I can remove that slide is to take this gear off, the worm. This is a worm, this is the worm gear. If I can take those off, and they're held on with tapered machine pins. So I'm going to tap those out if I can. Sometimes those are a bugger to get out, you know. And then I would be able to hopefully release a collar on the other side over here, pull that threaded rod out of there, but I will be turning the crank, or I would be rotating that gear. In other words, I'm going to screw that out manually, just like a big bolt. That's my game plan. I can find nothing in any of the instructional videos on how to do that. But before I do that and get all greasy, I want to comment on this casting. And by the way, these are the 4 bolts here, or 4 nuts, that will separate the base from the column. But this is just a beautiful job of pattern making with all of the reinforcement you see here and the bosses and beautiful fillets. It's just gorgeous, isn't it? And everything, of course, tapered. So that's the art of the pattern maker. That could all be done with 3D printing now, I suppose, but I'm sure a man worked on this for a month, all out of wood. But the fillets are so beautiful too, are they not? And those would have all been wax or leather fillets in the original beautiful pattern, which I'm sure has gone up in flames many years ago. Now I did look at this the other day. This isn't the first time I've had it upside down, but perhaps you never had a view of this. And I do have a wonderful parts breakdown, and that's available on Vintage Machinery if anybody would want to make a copy of that PDF file or whatever it is. So looking at this now, you can see how this operates with the worm gear and the worm just beautifully. And there are the tapered pins, machine pins. But before I drive those out, I like to mark them. In other words, index them so I can put them together exactly the right way. Matter of fact, they won't go in the wrong way, but you can manage to do some damage trying to drive it in the wrong way, and then you do have a problem. So I like to mark everything first. And the other thing I was going to point out is when I flipped this over the other day, it was dry. That is, all the grease was dry. It was 65-year-old grease. And I'm sure this had never been flipped over and greased, so I did put some nice lithium grease on there the other day and oiled the shaft, so it is turning freely. But that is something that will be totally, should I say, neglected in this type of machine. Most people don't even know what's under there unless they look at the parts list. Wow, that came right out. Kind of surprised. And that'll clean up easily. There are no graduations on this crank. And there's the worm. And I've got a little score mark on it with the Dremel. And one here, and one on other crucial parts. Now on the top side, I've already loosened the 2 set screws on this collar, and I'm hoping that will ride up on the thread. It should. Alright, I've got this collar loose. There's 2 set screws, and I'm going to attempt from the bottom side to unscrew this screw from the brass nut. And it's turning rather freely, so I think it's doing what I'm hoping for, although I'm not sure yet. And here it comes, finally. And there's the collar that was on the other side. So now that cross slide should pull off. So I'll get this thing upright again and see if it comes off. Well, I had that wrong. It still won't come off. Listen to this. It's hitting on the brass nut, and there is no way to get at that brass nut to unbolt it, so I guess the base has to come off. And I was thinking about doing that anyway, so I'll roll it over and take those 4 bolts out and see if I can get that base separated from the column. It just can't be easy, can it? And there it is. Alright, let's see what happens. If this doesn't do it, I just got to give up for the day, or the month even. I'll do it in September. May I suggest you don't try this at home? And there is what was holding it up, this brass nut. Well, there's a set screw there, but it wouldn't come out from this direction because it was striking right there. But it did come out from the bottom, but the base had to be off. Wow. Well, that is as far as it's going to come apart. This will all get cleaned up, and it's so hot in here, I think I'm going to quit for the day. Maybe I'll clean this surface off, but I'm not going to tackle this cross slide until tomorrow. Well, that was a long, hard, hot day, but I got so much done, and I'm just about ready to paint, but that will conclude this chapter, this part of this long series, so be sure and watch the next part where I'll do some painting and then start the reassembly. So this is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. See you next time.